YouTube, we are back recording. I didn't do a car intro in my last video because I forgot to press record. Anyway, we're back for the new split of the prep season before we go into competitions this year. We're roughly around that 200-day mark before we'll look at doing our first competition, but we've got leg day. So yesterday's video, push day. Apologize, there was no intro for that push day. Today is leg day. We're going to be bringing some of the familiar principles that I had in my push legs pull split during my last prep. We are changing up a few things. If you saw my full body every other day videos, you'll know that the big focus of mine recently was on the hamstrings and glutes. Now we're bringing some quad volume back. I felt like full body every other day I could not recover for whatever reason. Quads would not recover. I will admit, this leg day today, I was thinking about skipping it. For the first time, for a long time, I've thought about skipping leg day. But we're going to do some little tweaks, which will make it a little bit of a fresher video for the next time we hit this leg day session on the weekend. So, push legs pull upper lower is going to be the new split. I obviously make my thoughts very clear about splits. It doesn't really matter what split you're on. It's the contents within the split that are the things that are going to really determine your adaptations, whether that's towards strength, power, hypertrophy, whatever you're training for. You're training for the specific demands of the goals that you've got set for the program. So we're going to maximize push legs pull upper lower. Do I think it's the most optimal split? I don't think it's a bad one. I prefer push legs pull off, but my current schedule, I need certain set days off in the week, and this is the best split that I can fit to those days. If you guys can think of a better split with a Monday, Friday off day, let me know in the comments below. But anyway, we're going to get into the session, and we're also going to start doing some car recaps at the end as well, discuss some common concepts that have been talked about that are kind of floating around in the science-based lifting and questions and stuff like that. So make sure you stick around to the end of the video, because we'll also do a recap post-lift, some reflections from the lift, and then also some questions that are pertinent to this lift and also just the general science-based lifting community. So we'll see you in the gym. So off camera, I just hit some abduction and adduction. I honestly just forgot to set my camera up, and the machines were a popular one today. So straight into some hack press. I'm just warming up quads because I've been feeling a little bit sore on the quads recently. And so, using that cluster set theme, we did a little bit more volume on the ab and adductors, which I wish I recorded, because the reason why I did that is because I'm going to do a little bit less quad volume today. Probably this will be my only quad exercise in a lift. I am supposed to do leg extensions, but even just doing that first set, single leg, felt a little toasty on the quads, so still a little bit of lingering DOMs. So again, we kind of play to our strengths here. As we get a little heavier, we'll put our knee sleeves on as well. So, I started using the hack press a bit more recently after seeing a video from Derek Lunsford on this exact machine, and him saying that it's one of his favorite machines. So let's start training like Mr. Olympia for a little bit. And I did a little experiment, posted on TikTok how many plates each side I could get, and my 3 rep max was around 7 plates. So probably 1 rep max, 7 1/4 each side, something like that. And some people gave a little comment of like, should you strap your hands to the handles? I've not really found the need for that, but I can see kind of why some people would want to do it. Definitely feeling it in my quads today, so I might just kind of use this as a bit more of a lighter, get some range of motion through just a slight exposure, nothing crazy. Now remember, 3 rep max was 7 plates each side. So I'll probably go 5-ish plates, something like that. Leave a couple of reps in reserve, just do like a set close to failure. And that's the beauty of some of this programming and coaching, is that you can be flexible with how you program stuff. Like, just because I have written down on paper that I have to do 4 cluster sets of 5 today, doesn't mean that I have to just stick to that plan based on how my body feels. I can obviously make changes as needed in the session, and so should you. So I might sleeve up, do a set to failure, and then change the camera angle as well. Oh, all right. Couple of reps left in reserve. That was good. So I'm going to need somebody to explain to me why they think the RDL should be vaulted, because there seems to be this controversy around RDL in general as an exercise not being a good exercise to use, and yet people will go mad for stiff leg deadlift, which, generally speaking, I warm up stiff leg and then switch to RDLs. And so I think people get confused with the thought processes around reciprocal inhibition, antagonist inhibition, because they see that the a slight knee bend that shortens the hamstrings. But what they don't realize is that that knee bend is needed to create active forces in that knee flexion, because we're kind of holding an isometric. So some stuff from isometry shows that we're actually very much activating our hamstrings, particularly the semitendinosus within the RDL compared to the stiff leg. And so the one thing I'll say about stiff leg is, as things get heavy, range is normally compromised. You can normally get a little bit deeper for your RDL. And for some people who have got great joint range of motion, they can get the same spot in both. It doesn't make anyone less better or less worse. We got the straps out. Make sure grip isn't going to be the limiting factor, especially as we're going to do a bit more of a volume day. All right, a little cluster rest. So we're hitting threes. This is probably around a 5-6 RM for me. So we'll hit threes, triples, 3 sets of 3. And I saw a post about clusters, and they were like, clusters are so boring, it's easy to get distracted, get bored. in between the cluster set and limits performance, mental focus. And my message to that is, if you really, really want it, you'll find a way to focus. If it's 30 seconds rest and you're losing your attention span there, then you probably have like ADHD or something like that, and should then probably get like a notebook or be logging your weights in between the sets, doing something that actively pushes you to think about your progression and stay engaged. Otherwise, I don't see how a traditional set with 2-3 minutes of rest, you don't lose your attention span there. So I think when people are arguing that clusters are boring, one, they're not going hard enough in the cluster, because as you can tell with my breath right now, like 45 seconds rest isn't all that much. I'm still kind of out of breath. Obviously I'm talking to the camera, some people aren't doing that, but it's not all that much. So I'm not sure about that. The enjoyment factor is that sometimes they make it easier. Sometimes it feels more brutal. I'd rather just do one set to failure and leave the gym. But we want to progress our loads, our volumes at a specific intensity, and clusters is a great set extension technique to be able to do that. And you'll build strength over time, you'll build some tolerance over time to the load, so it's a good option. And the whole purpose behind clusters is to limit contraction velocity loss. So those 3 reps should have maintained relatively similar speeds. Feel free to rewind, time each rep, and feedback how many seconds it took me to complete each one. But I should have been maintaining my velocity. Now, if I go reps 4, 5, and 6, you'll see on this last set where I'll push to failure, just for the example, you'll see the point of change, kind of the switch point in reps where things start to get a little slow, a little grindy. Now, that doesn't mean no stimulus, still a useful technique, and I always reserve it to the last cluster. And that's a way that you can track your progress in your clusters, because say if I hit 5 reps, next week when I do the same format, same weight, if I hit 7 reps, we know there's a progression, and then my next session, I can go up slightly in weight. I can still just use subjectivity, go up anyway, test it, and then see how many reps I can get in that last cluster, which might then be like 3 or 4, and we'll know that the intensity is kind of doing the same thing. And so that's how you kind of can use clusters to your advantage, progress them, regress them. Like, not every day is going to be a progressive overload day. I've shown that a lot in my videos in the past, where certain muscle groups will improve versus other muscle groups that'll actually decrease in the same session. Sometimes you just have the juice, other times you just don't got it. All right. Missed the clips. My grip started slipping. And I've been noticing that a little bit recently with these Iron Mind straps where my grips are slipping off. And I don't like my hook grips for RDLs, but first world problems. All right, we'll unrack this and then go to the next exercise. All right, double hamstrings, because I think I'm gonna take out a quad set. And this feels like it's set up based on where I was last time. And so, because we just did RDLs, I'm confident that my tissue is warmed up enough now. I haven't done the curl pattern, but we're just going to rip in, hit one working set, maybe do one back down set, and call it a day for hamstrings in this specific pattern. Seated leg curls, they are really, really good. I honestly see this in my program, and ultimately I'm just like, fuck, I have seated leg curls today. Now, optimizing the seated leg curl. See a lot of this lean forward these days, which is good because it's going to improve the hamstring's length, and the length tension relationship is important there. But when we lean forward, we don't need to be all the way into that deepest stretch. So if you have, like me, a bit of like neural feedback, especially in my right hamstring, those really excessive slump positions are going to create more neural tension than anything, and that'll inhibit activation to the hamstring. So you want to stay within a comfortable range, which means if you get your hip flexion past 90 degrees, you're going to be okay. Anywhere between kind of 40, 50 degrees all the way up to like 120, maybe even 130, all of those ranges are going to effectively hit the hamstrings. So it doesn't really matter. I like to go from underneath. You see some people bracing up top, you see some people brace up here, you see some people bracing there. I like to go underneath this pad and kind of get my pinkies into my thighs, and that's how I create that more stable position. That's a set right there. Now I wish actually the backrest could come forward more. I do wish I had a seatbelt to also lock into this, but that's all we're going to do for hamstrings today. I'm not going to do anything more in terms of leg curls. Just one set, get it done. We could do clusters, but I'm happy with that. We said no more hamstrings, but this is like a glute hamstring hybrid type thing. Let's hit you with the forbidden angle. All right, we're almost there. All right, we like to finish leg days off with some ab work, and when it comes to me feeling a little bit more sore than normal, I like to actually get in the glute ham raise and kind of do a little bit more what I would consider spinal traction, decompression, even though we are doing some abdominal crunches here. And then that way we can use this as a little bit of a decompression for what we're trying to achieve. So there's a bit of hip flexor work in there as well, but I generally feel like it's a little bit better than doing machine crunches. Let's get this next set done. I'm gonna move my mic if that was getting in the way, so I apologize if now you hear more noises.
That's session done. Oh. Make sure you stick with us because we're going to do some breakdowns in the car as well.
All right, so a little post-session reflections. I'm going to start doing this a little bit on some videos, especially on today's one, because we did do some on-the-fly reprogramming of certain exercises and we didn't necessarily do the full session. I also forgot to record the adduction and abduction prior to the squats, so I did 3 sets of each with a warm-up set, so technically 3 working sets, 1 warm-up set in a cluster format. So I missed that off today's session, so make sure you, if you are going to copy this session, that you put those in there. And then we pivoted a little bit, so we went hack press, judged what our quads were feeling like. I was still feeling a little bit of soreness, particularly in the rec fem. So you might be wondering why I decided to do the squat instead of doing a leg extension. It was because the rec fem was feeling a little bit more sore and tight than the vasti muscles. So we could get away with having a little bit less load for the rec fem, still get a decent stimulus for my vasti muscles, and we could still keep that squat pattern in there. Now, there is another reflection from doing that squat. We did a set to failure with 5 plates each side. I'd have to work out the math off the top of my head in terms of what predicted 1RM that was, but we hit 15 reps. So, and there was a couple of reps left in the tank. I didn't go to true technical failure. So what do I know for next time? Well, I know that I can definitely go 6 plates. And so the next time I hit that hack press, I can add a slight little bit more load into the cluster warm-up, and we can progress to that working set and do a little bit heavier. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I did post a video on one of the other social platforms with a little experiment of me just doing 7 plates, getting roughly 3 reps, so that was my 3RM. And the goal is at some point this year to see if I can 1RM 10 plates, which is a massive gap. That's a lot of work that I gotta get to. I'm gonna just train as hard as possible and see how much we can achieve there. And then you'll also notice that my straps were slipping on RDL, so I think I'm gonna do a little bit of a regression there, get used to using my hook grips a bit more. I just don't feel comfortable because I like to have a bit more of like a grip around the bar, which my Iron Mind straps allow me to have that, whereas the kind of more solid grip straps, I just don't feel as comfortable. So we're going to do a little bit of a regression, I think, for technique to get used to lifting heavier loads with those types of straps and reps. And so that's another reflection point there. And then I mentioned this one in the actual session itself, but my abs, I had machine crunches, but when I am feeling a little bit more sore, I am feeling kind of like stiff and I need to get loose a little bit more, I normally throw myself in the glute ham raise because that allows us to do a little bit more spinal traction, some decompression work. Also, I could have flipped around and done it in the back extension position, but we kind of got some reverse hypers in, so we will have got a little bit of mobility work done there. And so that's where I generally kind of like on the fly will program some certain different things, switch and swap and change based on how I'm feeling, but still getting an overall solid leg day in. Now, the last thing that I'm just thinking about it, I did take a set off the seated hamstring curls. Probably next week I'll add that volume back in, so I will make sure that even if I'm feeling a little bit drained, that I'll do 2 sets, and I may even prioritize it in the next session as being one of the first exercises, so I can get some cluster sets done and have less focus on the hip extension task. So there are a few thoughts. I appreciate you if you've got this far in the video. I hope it's helped. I hope you're enjoying the content. I'm going to keep coming with these split and content videos. This is going to be kind of my more road to prep journey for second season. We're going to do a full season this year, so there's going to be a lot more content, a lot more relatedness towards bodybuilding and everything else. So if you have enjoyed this video, make sure you like. If you haven't subscribed before, make sure you're subscribing, and feel free to comment with any of your questions, and we'll see you in tomorrow's session for our pull day.